YouTube, but Facebook is working fine, so it's got to be on YouTube. On YouTube, yeah,
Yeah,
YouTube, yeah. I don't know what happened there, but Facebook. So, anyways, a couple weeks ago, I did the same thing. I still don't. All right, well, innings. This is when Moses does the final offerings and stuff with uh, Aaron and his sons, but Aaron and his sons are then taking over as the priests. Okay, they will be doing this last week too. Is that Moses also is uh, from the priesthood of Melchizedek, which we do believe was Shem, the son of Noah. And so he's showing them and he's doing this stuff for them, but now he did that with them for the first 7 days. Now the 8th day, new beginnings. They now are in the priesthood now. It's their time now, okay? So it's their time to do these things themselves. Moses won't do that for them after this, okay? So they are in control. And we'll go through all the different offerings and stuff like that. But a tragedy happens. And we have to realize this too, is that God is a serious God. That He's serious. You know, it's no joke. When we do things wrong, we deserve punishment. In this sense, we deserve discipline. And he is a severe God. Now, it's not that he does the same thing today, although he does. I believe he still does to a degree, but not like he did back then, you know. And I think that's because of what Yeshua did, okay? But we have seen God, even in these days, do things against evil people. People who think that they're doing God's will, who are taking God's reputation and destroying it. That I'll just say this right now: witches and warlocks and people who tell the future and all these things, and strippers even. I've heard them say, call themselves Christians or whatever. I'm sorry, if you're doing that stuff, you need to repent. You need to turn away from that, because that's evil. God has said no, you can't do that. Okay, and this is the reason why. Yes.
There was a homosexual activist or whatever who was also a priest, and he was
A Catholic priest.
I don't know, but he was doing a I don't know, sermon or something, and he was bless you. He was talking about this one part where this one guy was in a cave or whatever, and I think it was Jesus said, "Come out, come out."
Lazarus was in a tomb.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And this priest, homosexual guy, said, "This is showing that people were gay even then." No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the funny thing, the lights in the church went out. I was like, no.
Yeah.
So you're done. You're done.
Your light's done. Yeah, and that's the thing, that people are taking these things and wrecking the real meaning, adding things to it that aren't there. And that's the thing, is that people tend to do that. They think that they're pleasing God by doing these different things without really acknowledging it. And Paul tells us, Rav Shaul tells us, that God is a God of order, and He has a way that He wants to be worshipped. He has a way that he wants to be worshipped. And we read about Nadav and Abihu, and we look at it and say, well, what happened? What was wrong with what they did? Well, it says here that it was a foreign fire, fire, which means instead of taking the fire from the altar, which is what they were supposed to do, they took fire from just an ordinary fire, which was not sanctified to God, which was not part of the tabernacle or temple, okay? And they offered their incense from there, which was wrong. According to what we, but it says that Adonai said to Aaron, don't drink any wine or other intoxicating liquor, you nor your sons with you, when you enter the tent of meeting, so that you will not die. This is to be a permanent regulation through all your generations. Now, the thing is, he's not telling them they can't drink this stuff. They're saying when you are on duty and you are doing your job, in order for you to be able to tell the difference between what is clean and unclean, what is good and bad, etc., we shouldn't do that, you know. And even as believers, it's okay to have a drink and stuff, but don't get drunk. Don't get even a little bit of sloshed, because that's when we begin to start seeing good and evil coming together. They blur together, you know. One of the traditions for Purim was that something that we don't do and I don't condone, was that it used to be that you were supposed to drink every time Haman's name or Esther or Mordecai's name were, you would drink a drink until you were so drunk that Esther and Mordecai and Haman just blurred together. But we don't do that. We realize that's an issue that was never condoned anyways. Although there are still communities that do it, I still believe that's wrong. Because we're not supposed to blur good and evil. We're not supposed to blur good and evil. You know, we need to be, and that includes drugs. I don't care if it's marijuana or what it might be. We are not to use these things because they blur righteousness from evil. They begin to blur, to bring it together. And God wants it separated. That's why he's giving us these things here too, as a separation. He's called us to be holy. What does holy mean? Separate. Sanctified to him, right? To be separated out for. That means that we need to follow these things. I mean, I understand. If you're Jewish, this is what we need to follow. If you're a Gentile believer in Yeshua, you can also follow these things if you want. And I know many Gentiles that do when they realize that this is what God wants. It's not that you have to become Jewish. These things are commandments to bring life, to bring a separation between the rest of the world and his people, okay? And his people, out of the Gentiles, are those who take hold of God's Torah. God's Torah, take hold of the tzitzit. That's what the tzitzit is to remind us of, and that's why God says, why we're told in Zechariah 8:23, that there will be, in those days, there will be 10 men from the nations, a congregation of nations that will come together, and they will take hold of the corner of a Jewish man's garment. It actually says kanaf, which means corner, and in the corner of a Jewish man's garment there is tzitzit, right? Okay, so we have tzitzit, which is to remind us of God's Torah. And they will take a hold of it, and they shall say to that Jewish man, we want to go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. And we know together as that's Yeshua, that they're taking hold of Yeshua, who is the living Torah, okay? And taking hold of that, part of it is that our desire is to please God. Now there's 7 laws that were given to Noah. They call them the Noahide laws. And those are definitely ones that we see the apostles, especially James the righteous, Yochanan the righteous, the brother of Yeshua, who was the leader of the Messianic community, which he should have been. And he did. And he did a great job. And God showed him definitely to help bring about being able to study together, worship together, eat together with the Gentiles, is that this is what the Gentiles needed to give up certain things, right? And that's what we get into in chapter 11 too, but is they begin to have a kosher style diet. One, don't eat blood. Don't eat anything strangled. And I'll tell you why. Strangled, not just because it causes blood clots, but because the animal is being tortured. We don't torture animals. A kosher animal, when you kill it, needs to be killed in the correct manner that causes the least amount of pain. And that's why it's a very sharp knife from jugular to jugular in one motion.
Don't hesitate.
And no hesitation, right? No hesitation, because if you hesitate, you've caused that animal pain and is no longer kosher. Okay? It has to be divvied up to the Gentiles who don't believe. They can eat it, they will. You know, they eat anything. But anyways, the thing is that it has to be killed in the proper way, right? In order to be kosher. So don't eat blood, don't eat anything strangled. But then another one is don't eat anything offered up to idols. And we need to be careful with food today too, is that we look for kosher food, but there's Islamic food too. Mark, they have halal foods. Halal foods, if it says kosher on it and then it also says halal, it's not kosher. Okay, and you need to realize that too, because Muslims do not kill animals the way we would. Part of their system of killing an animal is to beat it to just a breath of its life and then kill it, which causes the animal to be tortured, cause the animal pain. We can't do that. And that is part of their essence, sanctifying it to their God, which is not our God. Sorry to say, Allah may be the name of God, but it's not our God. Huh?
Why do they put that in one package? Shouldn't they be separated?
They should be separated, but people think they can bring it together. And it's because they don't understand Jewish law and stuff. And don't ask me why the Orthodox Union or some of the others would go along with it. It's something I have asked, and I haven't gotten anything back from it, because it shouldn't be. If it's killed kosher properly, maybe it is killed kosher properly, and they just also do their thing to it. Since well, the Jews can eat it, so we can eat it, you know, something like that, because they don't eat shellfish and stuff like that knowingly. They will. I've seen them. But I've seen Jews too eat those same things that really aren't, they're not observant, you know. But God has called us to observe His commandments. And the thing with Nadav and Abihu is that they authored unauthorized fire. They took fire from another place that wasn't sanctified to God. It wasn't off the altar. And they offered it thinking they were going to please God, right? Yeah.
When I was younger, in school, back in Kensington, I had a corn dog, and I didn't realize that they don't, that turkey corn dogs aren't the only corn dogs.
Oh.
There's turkey corn dogs?
Oh yeah, turkey, and there's chicken corn dogs.
Turkey,
I've
there's
never
chicken.
seen.
But
I've only seen the beef.
either beef or pork, chicken, and turkey all in the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I didn't realize that they didn't like look at what they were, so I was like, these corn dogs look strange, but you know, tastes good. They're corn.
Yeah, it happens.
That's why if there's
So I
meat
know
in it,
I
food,
also
we
think,
just don't eat it.
That's a good thing.
Unless
Popcorn
it's
shrimp?
like
yeah,
it
I
tells
actually
you
ate some
specifically what
African,
it
I thought it
is.
was just like
Yeah.
chicken.
Like for the chicken Alfredo or the subline,
Yeah,
you can choose chicken breast or turkey.
yeah. And that's always good to ask a question. I know some people probably get, and I know people have got annoyed with us too, and we've asked, oh, what's in this? And I know one person that if you ask them, they'll say it's fine to eat. And it's not, but it's always good to ask those questions, and that's good doing what you're doing. That if you don't know what it is, definitely don't eat the meat. You know, it's better to not eat the meat than to eat it and find out it wasn't good. And I mean, it happens. We know that.
And even if they did have like unkosher for the Alfredo stuff, they also have a no chicken sauce that they have
hmm
that you can choose
Yep.
from instead.
Yeah. There was a store here not too long ago. I don't know. It was in one of the bigger cities. I don't know where, for sure. But for Passover, they had a big, huge Passover section, kosher meat and stuff like that. And right in the middle of it was kosher ham. It wasn't kosher, but right in the middle of it,
I know we went
they
to
had a
Walmart
sign.
one time and they had samples and the kids were asking, what kind of meat is that? Is it kosher? And he said, yeah, it's kosher ham.
Oh yeah, I remember that too. Yeah,
Like kosher.
yeah.
That's like a
Or
contradiction.
like we went to in Duluth, we went to Cub Foods there because they were supposed to have a kosher meat section. Apparently they had gotten rid of it or something. I have no idea. But we asked the meat guy. Yeah, they advertise it. That's right. They advertise
All
it.
the way to
Yeah.
Duluth for that.
Yeah, for that. And anyway, so we finally asked the meat guy. I said, "Yeah, we're looking for the kosher meat section." And he's like, "It's all kosher." And I go, "No, it's not. Your pork is not kosher. Everything's kosher. Everything's kosher." And just it was kind of a not very friendly person. So we left. We got our other things for Passover and stuff, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think he just didn't know what that meant, and I don't think he cared. So, but yeah, so the Navajo do their own thing, you know. That's what we have to be careful of. Just because they come up with a great idea, oh, you know, this will please God and stuff like that. We got to make sure it's within God's order of service, right? We can't just go off do half-cocked and do whatever we want. We've got to make sure that it's within God's will and God's purpose, you know. Because if we do, and that's why we have the story in 2 Samuel of Uzzah being killed, is because David wanted to bring the ark, a great thing, bring the ark into the city, but he didn't follow the order of service. God had forbidden the ark to be put on any type of cart or be hauled by any type of animal. And it was supposed to be the priests that took it and carried it. And what happened is that it got to a point where it began a bumpy road and stuff, and the ark started to come off to where it might fall off, and so he thought he was doing what was right, and he, you know, and Uzzah put his hand up to steady it, then God killed him because it was out of what God had said they were to do. And everybody became scared, became afraid. Well, God, we're trying to do this for you, and you killed this guy. Why? Why did you kill this guy? Well, David had to go back, put it at Obed-Edom's house. Obed-Edom was blessed for 3 months. Him and his family and stuff were blessed mightily because of the ark being there. But David had to go through and find out the correct way, the order of service for bringing it to Jerusalem, right? He had to go back. He messed up. And because of that, it cost somebody their life, right? And that's why I believe that God puts us in here for the priests is don't drink any wine or other intoxicating liquor, neither you nor your sons with you when you enter the tent of meeting. When you're doing for the priesthood, when you are doing the job for me, you are not to have a drink of any of that stuff so that you are clear-minded. Your mind is clear. You can distinguish between what is clean and what isn't clean, what is holy and what's not holy, what's between holy and common, right? But when we use drugs or we use alcohol to a point where it begins to blur the lines, and I've seen what happens when I used to be an alcoholic. I blurred the lines a lot of times, and sometimes I did it on purpose, you know, made mistakes. But I know of friends who made worse mistakes that they had to live with. Relatives even that made big mistakes and had to live with it. Alcohol and drugs shouldn't be part of your life anyways. I mean, drugs that help you, you know, that are prescribed by doctors, those type of things, yeah, that's fine. There are, I do see marijuana as being legitimate for people who need it, but not for just everybody, you know. If you get a doctor's order for it, okay, I can see that. If that's what helps you. And it's not that you're trying to get high, it's just It's a medication that goes in your system to calm you and help you in that way. I understand that. But to get you high and stuff, if that's what you're using it for, that's no different than getting drunk. And I don't have a problem with alcohol either anymore. I mean, I don't drink much. I mean, I have wine on this for the ushering the Sabbath and for festivals. Really, I don't have much any other time. I might have a beer with my father-in-law or with my sons, but I usually don't finish it anyways, because to me, alcohol tastes bad. I mean, there's some wine, Manischewitz wine. I really like Manischewitz wine because it's sweet, but it's still got that taste in there I don't like, because I know what it is. It's
It smells really bad. I remember one time Mom was drinking wine. I walked up the stairs, smelled it, and then retreated back downstairs.
Yeah.
I smelled the wine and said, Mom,
But-
I'm
More
never
or
gonna
less,
drink
you
this."
probably just saw somebody you didn't want to talk to that you
But anyways, yeah, whatever. Anyways, the thing is that we got to be careful in our walk with God. You know, that's why Rav Shaul is telling the Gentiles in Galatians and stuff that, you don't need to convert to Judaism to be saved. And you don't have to convert to Judaism to keep the commandments. Okay? Because what you do then is that now, as Jewish people, we have to keep the commandments to the best of our ability. We're responsible for that. God's going to hold us accountable for that. But for Gentiles, He's not going to hold them accountable to that, because that's not part of who they are. But He still wants, and that's why He gave James the righteous the 4 things that they needed to stay away from, right? Sexual worship of false gods, that's fornication. Blood, strangle, meat, and anything offered to idols, right? That's just the start. It does say in the Didache that they say to the Gentiles, the disciples say, or the apostles say to the Gentiles, say, learn the commandments, keep as many as you can. That's as many as you can, but you're not required to do that. Okay, so. But what's there to eat, what's good to eat, and stuff like that, right? So we see that. But remember, we can't just pick and choose what commandment we're going to keep today and not keep tomorrow or whatever, As a Jewish person, we have all of them to keep. But we also, as Gentiles, you have the ability to not pick and choose, but just do the best you can with what you can. Learn them and keep what you can, right? You're still part of the house, the kingdom of God, still part of the kingdom of Israel, God's Israel, right? But Jews are called in a specific way, whereas Gentiles are called in another, but yet we're still one people through Yeshua. One new man, Jew and Gentile, one together, right? And so we see all these things. We see David finally, he studies. He finds out how to bring the tabernacle into the city. Why? Because he loves God. He wants that to be there. And not only that, but he realizes, that we put it in a tent, and I'm living in this fabulous building here. Why should God live in a tent? I want to build him something. But Nathan, the prophet, comes and tells him that, you don't need to build him anything right now, but keep it in your heart. And this is what God says to you, that I will build your house. If you continue to serve me and follow my ways, I will raise up for you a son whose kingdom will never end. Right? And what's interesting is that, King Solomon, whose name is King Shlomo Melech Israel, the king of Israel, Shlomo, which comes from the word peace. He was the Prince of Peace. Then he became the King of Peace. And he had no wars to fight during his time, right? Everything was peaceful from the beginning of his reign to the end of it, right? And that's a picture for us to see what God's promise is that way. Yeshua is the true Prince of Peace. When he comes, he's going to gather our people from the 4 corners of the world and bring them back to Jerusalem. And he's going to gather with them all the Gentiles that have taken hold of the corner of a Jewish man's garment, which is the Torah. Okay? And they will, all of us will go to Jerusalem, and we will, at that point, rebuild the third temple. Yeshua will get it set up, get it built, and then get the Aaronic priesthood working again, sanctified and cleared and cleaned and purified and stuff like that. And then they will start the offerings again, the actual offerings and stuff like that that we'll all be a part of, be able to do. But we have to do it the way He wants us to do. I know people tend to think that they can do whatever they want and think it's going to please God, but we really have to look at that. I'm serious. We really have to look at that. We can't just do whatever we want. We really have to make sure that it's within God's order of service, right? Very important. And even with Yeshua here, that Yeshua even says the same thing with Yochanan the Immerser, John the Baptist. When Yeshua came from the Galil to the Yarden to be immersed by Yochanan, but Yochanan tried to stop him. You are coming to me? I ought to be immersed by you, right? And that's what we look at. But the thing is, what is it that Yeshua said? He says, however, Yeshua answered him, let it be this way now, because we should do everything righteousness requires. And which he's talking about is what the Torah requires, is what he's saying. Even Yeshua was bound by that. Still, any person, we will be bound by the Torah until the end of the Messianic age, the 1,000-year reign of Messiah. Okay, and we know that. We understand. We've talked about this before. But even Yeshua goes and says we need to do everything that is written, everything that is righteousness, everything that is in the Torah. We need to keep it that way, which is interesting. Which is interesting because Mary and Elizabeth were cousins. Elizabeth was married to a priest. Her son John, Yochanan, was a priest. Okay? And Yeshua was the descendant of David through Joseph. Okay? And I know people say, oh, but it was a virgin birth. Yeah. Well, I like to say this too, is that the Jewish tradition teaches that when Isaac was born and grew up, he looked exactly like his father Abraham. That God took the DNA of Abraham, of course, and made Isaac, so that there was no dispute between who Isaac's father was and maybe somebody else. And we also see that happen with Yeshua too, that there was many people, Romans and priests and stuff at that time, that tried to say that he was a bastard child, or that his father was a Roman, or one of those type of things, right? But I believe that he looked exactly like Joseph, his earthly father. That God took DNA from Joseph and created Yeshua, so that people couldn't say that. They could see, oh, it's got to be Joseph's son. You know, I believe that. And I will always believe that, because God did that with Isaac and Abraham, and I believe He did that with Yeshua and Joseph, so people couldn't say that she was messing around with somebody else, which is what Joseph thought too. Remember, we see that. But yeah.
I always hate that I hear someone calling like a baby that word you said.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the baby's fault. Why you calling it such a mean name?
Well, because it's not it's a term that biblically using is what is the term? I can't remember. Meshumad. Basically, being born in a unholy relationship, out of an unholy relationship or an unpermitted relationship. Okay. Yeah.
They didn't do anything.
Right.
Except for being born.
Right. But God has a separation for that, because they are born. But the thing is, it's not just having premarital sex. Okay, I'm sorry to say, just because somebody has premarital sex and a baby is a result of it, the only way that that child would be considered from an unclean relationship would be if it was through adultery, incest, or anything like that. That's what that's talking about. Okay, but anyways, we're kind of off topic there. But that's what I believe about Yeshua and Joseph. That in essence Joseph was his earthly father. That he resembled Joseph perfectly, so that people couldn't say these things that they tried to say about Isaac and Abraham, you know, and that it was God who did these things. Miracle of miracles. Isaac was a promised son. Yeshua is a promised son. There's all these pictures that are right there together. Anyways, but as we go through here, we see that God has, in chapter 11, along with what has happened with Nadav and Abihu, and also not drinking anything when we're supposed to be doing God's work, right? As we also, God gives us a separation again from the rest of the world. He gives us, not only does he give us how we're supposed to wear our clothes, how we're supposed to take care of our bodies and our hair and stuff like that, but also what we're to eat. Are all the animals that are eaten in the world bad for us or bad? No. God did say after the flood to Noah, all animals are given for you as flesh to eat. But God is doing a separation here. He's separating his people once again a little bit further. He's giving us what we can eat, what we can't eat. Okay? And I know that when I came to faith in Yeshua as a Messianic Jew, that I realized I had to give up bacon and stuff like that. I used to love ham. Bacon, not so much. But ham, yeah, I used to love that. And that was one of the hard things we had to give up. I know my wife, it's hard for her to give up bacon cheeseburgers and bacon and stuff like that too, you know. But, and we got used to it. And, Baruch Hashem, God had given us alternatives to these things, like corned beef, turkey bacon, turkey ham, beef bacon, which is really good too, and other things too that we've done. Yes, both. Okay. What?
I was gonna say, every time my friends who are able to have bacon, who talk about pork, I go, yeah.
Yeah.
It disgusts me.
I know. Yeah.
So me and Dasa once asked Mom, since she's eaten pork before, what was her favorite kind of bacon? Beef? Wait, is it beef?
We said pork or turkey, she said beef.
No, she said turkey.
Pretty sure she said
Beef was my favorite.
beef.
I do like beef,
Okay,
but
so
it's
Yeah.
hard to find it.
It's hard to
so
find
we
it.
asked Mom if she liked pork or turkey bacon more. She said she's beef.
Yeah.
But,
Does taste better, that's for sure. So anyways, but what we're having here is that God is separating, again, a people for him to be holy, be purified. And so he gives us the rules for what we can eat, And the rabbis have taken it a little bit further, which is fine. I have no problem with it, with the shochet, the ritual butcher, that is killed in a certain manner and in a certain way. But I also believe that if you're not able to get that type of kosher meat, to follow this order right here that he gives, animals with complete split hooves and chew the cud for land animals. Fish, fins and scales. I don't eat bugs, so I don't worry about that. Okay? And for birds are basically what they're looking at is birds of prey, birds that eat dead animals, okay? Those type of things. But one is,
The not good ones.
they're not the good ones to eat, okay? Because they have to do
Birds
with
that
death
we-
and stuff
The
too.
birds that we hunt are generally ones we can eat.
Yeah, the ones we usually hunt
The ones
are
we
good.
think about it.
There are certain types of ducks that are not kosher to eat, like the loon is not something you could eat. Certain geese, certain wild animals, even though like, see, what's that little bird, the cormorant, is not clean to eat, even though it looks like a clean animal. It's one that actually does feed off of carrion and stuff too, which is interesting. So, I mean, and I know people say, well, what about the chicken? You know, a chicken will eat anything, but for some reason, it's part of the tradition, but it has what they call, yeah. What's it called?
It's kind of like a cow, but it, I mean, 'cause it doesn't.
It's a cone, but it's a
The gullet, yeah.
gullet or whatever, yeah. And that's basically what the clean birds are going to have. And you take a look at and you compare them to doves and pigeons. They're clean to eat. Well, what's the difference between them and a chicken? Well, they have the same thing. They have to eat rocks in order to digest their food.
I thought doves were okay, but pigeons are not.
No, doves and pigeons are okay, because that's what you offer up. You can offer up a dove or a pigeon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But what's interesting too is that, you know, that's what we look for in them. Which I was thinking too. You know, like you know, an ostrich, that'd be a nice big bird to eat, right? But it's not kosher because it eats carrion and it has toes and it doesn't have the gullet and stuff. It doesn't eat stones to digest its food, and that's. I'm still trying to find about the emu, because the emu is a little bit different, but I don't know.
I think
So far,
emus have toes too.
they do, but I haven't seen it on the list yet.
If it has toes, it's not kosher.
Yeah, but it depends. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I haven't found for sure. Once I do, yeah, they have toes. Well, all birds have toes.
No. They have claws.
They have toes. Anyways, the idea is, the thing that they're looking at is that gullet part, and that they eat rocks to digest their food. And I don't know what an emu does, but they run. Yeah, they run. So anyways, we just have to understand that it's not that we can just do anything that we think might please God. We have to make sure that it's within His purpose, within His will, and His organization, His order of service. Okay, and we really need to do that. And we really need to understand that God is a severe God. He's a loving God, but He's also severe, which is what He should be, and why we should fear Him. Just as Yeshua said, don't fear those who can kill your body, but fear Him who can kill both your body and your soul. Because those who don't follow God, we know, and it's even said, we've read it in our prayer books, and we've read it in Ezekiel and other places where it says that they shall cease to exist in that time. Fire shall come forth from within them and consume them, and they shall cease to exist. That's fear. It's not. We shouldn't use that to try and get people saved in that same thing. We should be using that God's love for us. You know, God's love, a way to live that is awesome and great, that draws us close to God. You know, that draws us near.
It's just like a parent. A parent should be respected for his love for his children,
Right.
but he should also be feared, because if his children disobey, they'll be punished.
Punished. Yeah. Disciplined. Yes. What?
Were you asking about how emus eat?
Yeah. No. I'm not sure. I don't think they're kosher,
swallow
but
pebbles to help grind up their food in their gizzard.
They do have a
so they might, which is separate, which is different from a ostrich. So, which is interesting. So,
look up our emus kosher.
yeah. Anyways, so we'll find that out later. So, anyways, all right. So
No, they are not.
they're not. Okay. Emus are not kosher. So, be cool if they were, because that's some big meat right there. You know, big wings. Talk about buffalo wings. You know.
And they won a war.
Yes, they did.
They did.
They did win a war. That's
They
true.
successfully won a war against the bear.
Yep.
Their bird, what's it called? Their national bird is an emu, and they went to war with said bird.
Yeah.
Still lost.
Yeah. New Zealand's bird is kiwi.
Yep.
Yep. So.
They were called kiwi too.
Okay. All right, everybody, bow their heads for the priestly blessing. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aharon and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May it be your will. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May it be your will. May the Lord turn his face towards you and grant you peace. May it be your will. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha. Shalom. Also, this is when it says that Moses came out and blessed the people, and Aaron came out and blessed the people. This is the blessing. So, all right. So this week, Tuesday night 7, we have our Torah club. Our lesson is book 27. This week, our Torah portion is combined. So we have Tazria and Metzora. So it's a double Torah portions this week. Okay. And just so you know that, and don't just read one and forget about the other. So, and then Wednesday night we are on Taming the Tongue by Mark Kinzer, and we are halfway through chapter 5. So that's where we'll begin there. Very good book. I really like it so far. And once we're done with that, then we'll be not having our Wednesday study for the rest of the summer. So, but be praying for us, because in June 13th to the 30th, we will be gone to Arkansas to visit my son Francis and his family there. And hopefully some of our other kids are going to be able to join us down there as well. Should be great. I'm going to keep Hadassah and Hannah home here so they can watch the house, but just kidding. No, but we will. But yeah, Kyler will be here, and we'll have somebody else help as well. But just keep us up in prayer in that, and also keep David up in prayer because he's in Mexico. He should be back Tuesday. He's having fun, but just to keep him safe. A lot of different things in there. But yeah, so we had a great Passover. We had a lot of people come to the Passover Seders, family and friends and stuff. Met some new people and stuff. So anyway, so have a great rest of the Sabbath, a great week this week too. So Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos, everybody. Have a great week.